We're first going to talk about the bylaws changes and the potential bylaws that were voted on by the membership on March 27th, 2021. The TPA Board of Directors voted to endorse the proposed bylaw changes and submit those changes to the membership via electronic and paper ballot and in-person opportunity to vote. TPA published the following notices on March the 1st, posted a notice of annual meeting and voting for TPA website. April 12th, sent an email announcement with voter IDs. April 19th, mailed postcard announcements. And April 26th, sent email reminders to vote. May 3rd, 2021, sent another email reminder to vote. Electronic and mail-in paper ballots. Voting began April 13th and ended May 8th, 2021. 658 people voted. 649 members voted online during the election, and 9 paper ballots were received. Nine paper ballots were received. We also had one person vote in person for the bylaws, and it was at this meeting. So we are at 659 people voting during this election cycle. There were 3 ballot questions, a proxy authorization, and that would give me the opportunity to present people who voted online their vote at this annual meeting, because the bylaws requires voting at an annual meeting. And if you voted online or through the mail, you had to give somebody a proxy. So I will be presenting those votes to you. And then the second vote was a vote to elect directors for a single term beginning September 1st, 2021. And then another vote for the bylaw changes. All 658 people who voted online and by mail voted yes for the proxy vote, so I am authorized to present their vote. The proposed bylaw changes that were presented was reducing the number of board of directors from a range of 12 to 15 to a range of 6 to 9. A nominee or board member's agency and retirement status shall be determined at the time of the election. That was important because people do retire, they do change agencies, and we do have restrictions in the bylaws that say a certain number of people who can be from from one agency or a certain number of retirees. Allowing the board of directors to approve a person to a vacant position anytime during the term. The board of directors always has the option of electing a person or holding an election. This, you might recall, happened last year where we had an election at the annual meeting or a spring campaign. And then during the fall or during the summer, right after we announced the election results, we had a person who left state employment, so they were no longer eligible to be a board member. We had to turn around and have another election, and elections are fairly expensive, even though they're online. We do have to give notice both online and in print, so it does take a little bit of cost. So that was to address an issue where you have multiple elections in one year. Try to be a little bit more efficient about that. If the remaining term is equal to 6 months or less, the position may remain vacant until the next regularly scheduled election. Of course, again, an election cycle takes at least 75 days because you have to give 60 days notice to the membership about an annual meeting. The nomination committees also has to present nominations to the board of directors prior to that. So really an election cycle begins in February and March for the June annual meeting. And a motion or a proposal to combine the vice president and president-elect roles. Again, that's for efficiency. The vice president takes over if the president is unavailable, and thank you, Jan, for doing that a couple of times this year. And the president-elect is in waiting, the president in waiting, so they are automatically promoted to president the following year. So we thought that it would be a good opportunity to combine those positions. Allowing the modernization of accounting practices for the organization and opting out of 2 physical signatures. So what we have right now is that people actually have to come to the office and sign checks, and that is not very efficient, and it also requires that treasurer be within driving distance of Austin to be able to do that. So it allows for electronic signatures. The rest of the items were conforming amendments to the bylaws. So wherever it said where there was a number or a title like vice president or president-elect, it would make those people, those amendment changes. There were 623 for the amendment and 35 against the bylaws amendment changes. So, Mr. Secretary, I will offer that the bylaws changes were approved by the membership. And when I get finished, you're welcome to do your motions to adopt. The second item, well, actually the third item on the agenda was the board election. As of March 25th, the filing deadline, 35 amazing people applied to run for the TPA board. 17 of them met all the filing requirements, which were being a member of TPA in good standing. They completed a board application as well as a conflict of interest form. The bylaw amendment that sets the range of board members from 6 to 9 was approved by the membership, and the board of directors previously established 9 as the number of board members if that bylaw change was approved. 3 people with the most votes would be elected to the board of directors. And I do want to give a shout out right quick to Richard Hildreth, who's with us today. Thank you for running for the board of directors. We appreciate it. And any of these members who ran and may not be in the top 3, we will put you to work. Just ask Joe and Eddie Reyes that we will put you to work. The results of the elections is that, I want to actually back up 1 second. The bylaws and board elections, if you look at this, I just wanted to give you a little bit of history on the board and bylaws elections, that we are the number of positions versus the number of candidates. And as you can see, from 2021 and 2020, we had 12 and 15 candidates as opposed to 3 in 2019 and 6 in 2018. Of course, the October 2020 was an anomaly because we just had an election. We were hoping a lot of people who didn't make it in the previous election would rerun, but there wasn't an interest in that. So the next slide, please. And then this just shows you a history of the voters, the number of voters. In 2018, basically, we didn't have a lot of votings because that was prior to electronic voting. So the fact that we are using technology now and are using a lot of social media and emails to remind people to vote has really paid off. We have almost 700 people vote, and that's amazing. So not only do we have wonderful candidates, we also have a lot of people voting. So the results of the election, and this is a little bit busy slide, but the results of the election is that Lisa Thomas, Carrie Summerfield, and Jimmy Teal are the top 3 vote getters. Lisa Thomas has 286 votes. Carrie Summerfield has 281 votes, and Jimmy Teal has, I have to find as 268 votes. So those are the top 3 vote getters. The slides shows a little bit different number because there were some in-person voting at the meeting. So we just added those votes to those totals. But we did have an enormous amount of voters. Many people were very close, as you can tell, in terms of the number of voters. So anybody that says a vote doesn't count, you say it does count, because there's less than 5 difference between the person with the most votes and the person with the second most votes. And throughout, for instance, there is 3 difference between number 6 and number 7, 236 and 233. The other amazing thing about this is that we have now diversified our board, and so that we'll have additional agencies on the board that we haven't had before.